With my foot on the water, I feel the moon outside take on the utmost of its power. I rise and go out through the boats. I set my broad soul upon silver, on the skin of the sky, on the moonlight, stepping outward from earth onto water in quest of the miracle this village of children believed.
If American poetry had a grand master, that title would have to go to James Lafayette Dickey. He has written in many media, not only poetry, but also fiction, essays, screenplays, even commercial advertising. In his poem, The Lifeguard, Dickey shows one way a poet relates to the world around him. The poem is based on an incident when a man drowned at a lake where Dickey was swimming.
Everyone there who could swim was pressed into service to try to find the body, and I know pretty well the sensation of going down there in the pitch black dark and groping around for something that you really do hope you won't find. Dark drew all the light from my eyes, like a man who explores his death by the pull of his slow-moving shoulders. I hung head down in the cold.
Dickey says that he made a very conscious effort not to interfere with the way the poem came to him.
But I thought it should have an ease of statement, almost colloquial. At the same time, colloquial and dreamlike, and I tried for that. The setting is a boys' summer camp, and it concerns a lifeguard, an older boy who has been in charge of the younger boys swimming, and has allowed, or at least has not been able to prevent, the drowning of one of them. In his delirium of grief, undergoes a sort of a hallucination that he can undo the past, that when the moon comes up and shines strongly enough upon the water, that he can rise and go out and walk on the water like Christ, and he can raise the little boy back up into life and restore him to his friends. Patiently, slowly, he rises, dilating to break the surface of stone with his forehead. He is one I do not remember having ever seen in his life. The ground I stand on is trembling upon his smile. I wash the black mud from my hands. On a light given off by the grave, I kneel in the quick of the moon at the heart of a distant forest and hold in my arms a child of water, water, water.
Dickey defines poetry as the expression of someone's unique insights about the world.
Poetry, that's where the inimitable comes in. That's where the X factor comes in. That's where the personal penetration of insights and the individual viewpoint comes in. And if you read enough of it, not just if you read enough poetry, but if you read enough of anything, you know when it happens, whether it happens in verse, in some sort of verse form, or whether it happens in prose.
But ultimately, making poetry happen still remains a mystery to this prolific writer.
And I would do almost anything to get that effect, to have the reader forget that he's reading a poem and feel that he's living through whatever the poem is about. Yeah, I don't know exactly how you do that. I've really never found out, but I do believe it's possible to do it, and I'm still looking.
Whatever that hidden quality is, many of Dickey's poems, especially the performance, demonstrate its magnificent power.
The last time I saw Donald Armstrong, he was staggering oddly off into the sun going down of the Philippine Islands. I let my shovel fall and put that hand above my eyes and moved some way to one side that his body might pass through the sun.
Dickey was a fighter pilot during World War II. Don Armstrong flew in his squadron.
Everybody liked him and admired him very much, but he was also an amateur gymnast. And he used to try to do handstands around in the squadron area, during off-duty times. And And during one of his raids, he misjudged the ground. I think it was at dusk, and hit the ground and destroyed the airplane, and he and his navigator, his observer, Jim Lally, were wounded but taken out and were beheaded the next morning by the Japanese. And the headsman broke down in a blaze of tears in that light of the thin, long human frame, upside down in its own strange joy. And if some other one had not told him, would have cut off the feet instead of the head. And if Armstrong had not presently risen in kingly, round-shouldered attendance, and then knelt down in himself beside his hacked, glittering grave, having done all things in this life that he could. The late Randall Jarrell, who was one of the fine poets and critics of our time, once said a poet is someone who spends his whole life standing out in thunderstorms hoping to be struck by lightning. If he gets struck one time, he's remembered. Half a dozen times, and he's great. But you got to stand out in that rain. And a lot of people don't like to do that, at least not that much.